Welcome. My name is Kirsten Miller, and I will be doing a lightning talk presentation on providing an accessible classroom for students who are deaf and hard of hearing, specifically those who are oral speaking in a mainstream school system. Please note that attached with my presentation, I have provided a transcript with the slide number indicated for your own references. Currently, approximately 87% of students who are deaf and hard of hearing, oral speaking, are in mainstream public school programs. Research has shown that students who are deaf and hard of hearing spend most of the day in the general education classroom, achieve better academically than deaf and hard of hearing students in self-contained classrooms, but achieve less well than hearing peers. Research has shown that deaf and hard of hearing students are often misunderstood for their academic potential, have a lack of social interaction with teachers and hearing students, receive a lack of appropriate accommodations, receive lack of access to instructional and educational materials. For deaf and hard of hearing students in a mainstream classroom in today's environment, where students are expected to learn more, produce more, and be assessed more, the high pressure combined with low expectations can be overwhelming. My inquiry question seeks to understand how can teachers provide in an accessible classroom for students who are deaf and hard of hearing, oral, in a mainstream school system. The data method that I used was a form of an interview with a teacher who had an experience of having a deaf student in her teaching experience. This project was limited to one 20 to 30-minute interview. The teacher I interviewed worked within the public school system in a predominantly low-income socioeconomic neighborhood. The teacher had an extensive teaching experience and the confidence and expertise that would accompany the tenor of her experience. However, even with this background, this teacher struggled independently to come up with consistent best practices strategies to work with students who are deaf and hard of hearing. While the effort was certainly shown in her ability to have researched some proven strategies on her own, the importance of working as part of an interdisciplinary team who could provide the best proven strategies to ensure the academic success of the student who was deaf and hard of hearing was something that was not embraced by this teacher. Furthermore, the teacher was unable to make a consistent connection between home and school. The teacher tried a strategy to connect weekly via email with parents. However, the teacher seemed to have accepted the fact that some parents could not, due to work, other child responsibilities, to devote any other additional time towards their child who was deaf and hard of hearing. As a teacher candidate, I learned from this interview and the literature I reviewed that the success of the student who is deaf and hard of hearing depends on solid home and school connection that needs to be established early in the student's academic life. It is so important for parents to be involved in that circle, whether it is pre-teaching vocabulary or reinforcing concepts that were discussed where perhaps gaps may have been noticed by the classroom teacher. This connection and having the classroom teacher and parents or caregivers work as a team allow the students who is deaf and hard of hearing to be on a level playing field with their hearing peers. I recognize that I can't know what I don't know and should be open and willing to work with individuals who are trained in dealing with students who are deaf and hard of hearing. They have provided resources and approaches that will provide greater consistency when dealing with students who are deaf and hard of hearing. An important takeaway from the interview was that some students who are deaf and hard of hearing do not bond well with all itinerant teachers. While I would be open to accepting all resources and advice on supporting my classroom student who is deaf and hard of hearing, I would rely on social emotional information to the itinerant teacher in order to foster a greater connection between the two of them. Thank you for listening to my presentation.